So my name is Breea Clark. I moved to Norman in 2005 to attend the University of Oklahoma College of Law, and I am running for re-election as the first millennial mayor and youngest female mayor for the city of Norman.
Okay. Um, so kind of first question is what got you involved in city politics and why are you running for re-election now? What originally made you want to run for mayor as well?
Awesome. Thank you for that question. So I've always been involved in my community. I think I organized my first citywide community service project back in my hometown of Wichita when I was in middle school. And so when I moved to Norman and after I took the bar exam, I really dove in and wanted to affect positive change right here in my new home. And so my community service actually started with the Parent Teacher Association. I actually helped start the PTA at Reagan Elementary, where my son was the first part of the first class to go K-5 at that school. And from there, I moved on to bringing back the Norman PTA Council, which is a citywide position. And through that role, I got to connect with the Chamber of Commerce and other community leaders. And it was also around the time that the Norman Forward Initiative was being passed. So while that's going on, I also ran into Mayor Cindy Rosenthal and asked how I could get involved. And she suggested I apply for boards and commissions. So I have been serving on a city board or commission since I believe right out of law school, 2008. So I'm working in the community, serving on boards and commissions, and it dawned on me that I didn't know who my council person was. And as active as I was in the community, if I didn't know who my council person was, I'm guessing a lot of people didn't know who their council member was. And with local government being the most important level of government, that's simply unacceptable. So when I decided to run, it was to connect residents to local government and get them involved and to make sure they know what's going on. Because again, the decisions that city governments make at City Hall impact lives faster and more directly than decisions made at other levels of government. So I've been a Ward 6 council member from 2016 to 2019. I ran unopposed in 2018. In 2019, I decided to run for mayor because Norman deserves a choice. So I ran and lo and behold, we won. And what a first term it has been. And I'll be honest with you, Reese, we've accomplished a lot and I'm very optimistic for the future. But there were moments where I was almost sure I wasn't going to run again because I made a lot of sacrifices personally to serve my community. But after a lot of introspection, there's simply no one better and more qualified to keep Norman moving forward through this continued crisis. It would honestly be a disservice to my almost 15 years of service to walk away with all of this still going on right now. So I've got one more term left in me and I'm excited for 3 more years leading the city of Norman.
And so my next question kind of leads into that. Elected officials across the country had to make decisions, unpopular, popular amongst groups just because of COVID, because of the racial justice protests, because of everything. And one of those things, you were really strict on COVID mitigation at the beginning of the pandemic. Norman was, I think, was the first to implement a mask mandate. They were pretty stringent here. And then also the reallocating of the $865,000. So it seemed kind of two hot topics in Norman kind of happened right together. What would you say to people that think that you bring a lot of baggage into the race with these past decisions you made as mayor?
Well, first of all, I decided early on in my community service and political career that I'm not making decisions to get reelected. I'm making decisions because they're the right thing to do. And in terms of our response to COVID, we were the leader of the state in taking a stand against COVID-19. And I was the first emergency declaration. The council helped me put the first mask mandate in place, and we were the last ones to remove it. And people have been concerned, well, what did that do to our economy? Well, I'll tell you, Reese, if you look at the overall case numbers and death numbers, unfortunately, of COVID-19 per capita of any large city, Norman has fared better and saved lives better than any other Oklahoma city. And I will forever be proud of that. And in terms of the economy, we have a 1.5% unemployment rate and the highest sales tax revenue ever. So we led the way in saving lives and showing that you don't have to negatively impact your economy to make the right choice. So I'm very proud of the decisions made during COVID-19 and the data supports it. In terms of the reallocating the police funding, I listened to hours and hours of residents saying that the current system was not working for them. It is incumbent upon any elected official to challenge the status quo, because if it's not working for everybody, it's not good enough. So we decided to make some changes. And with that reallocation, as you may have seen, announced several months ago, there is a new bureau in the Norman Police Department after their restructuring, and it's a community services and outreach bureau. I think the police department was also listening that night. And so I am very excited to fully fund this new department to make sure that it meets the goals that they have established, including strengthening neighborhoods, building relationships with residents, and being more intentional and targeted when approaching crime so your average resident isn't getting caught up in that. And I don't know if that restructuring would have happened without the bold decisions that we made that night. I'm very proud of our first responders in Norman, and I've always been a supporter. I've done stuff behind the scenes supporting our police that Norman residents don't even know about, but I don't do it for the credit. I do it because I believe in what they do. But I also believe that we can always do better. And to accept the status quo, again, is simply unacceptable and irresponsible as a community leader.
Looking back over the past year, 2 years, 2020, 2021, and the attempted recall of you and several other council members, is there anything you regret doing that led to this? Do you everything look back that maybe you don't regret, but you might have done a little differently, or and listen differently if you would have known that was the eventual outcome and that would be attempted?
Well, as I said earlier, I don't make decisions to get reelected. So would I have done things differently regardless of the recall effort? Maybe. And I think the main thing is we didn't realize how ineffective our current rules for meetings were until they got tested. And so since then, we have put boundaries in place to not limit the public's opportunity to contribute to these important conversations, but to help people be more concise and also use all means of communication. Because again, we are volunteers. My $100 a month, having these 8-hour marathon meetings is not something that I enjoy. And so I've been excited to see these new policies go into place and be successful in keeping our meetings a lot more manageable. I do think with bold decisions, sometimes you make them in the moment. But for example, as we approach another stormwater utility, we're going to take our time on that one, and we're going to get a lot of community involvement, I think, and participation. And same thing with our ARPA dollars. I'm not in a rush to spend them. I want to make sure that we get as much out of it with as much collaboration with other partners as humanly possible. So I'm excited for the changes that have been made since that meeting. And I always think it's important to make the right decision in a tough moment. And I believe that's what we did. But I've also learned a lot from it. And you can see that in the meetings that have been run since then.
One more question on this topic before we move on. What would you say to the residents and to the Norman first responders who felt kind of attacked at the reallocating of the funds, and that the council didn't support the police and that the council was anti-police? And what would you say to them?
I would say that it's not one or the other. It's not either you support the citizens or you support the police. I did my best to listen to residents and clearly saw that we needed to make change. And while I fully support our police department, this was a way to ask to make change. And our budget speaks to our beliefs. And again, I believe that we need to be the most inclusive and equitable community in the state. And we are, but there's always room for improvement. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can ask for positive change and still support our first responders. And I've done that. So I don't want, as I said before, it's time to call out the elephant in the room, which I've done with the police department in the room, and declare it's time to move on. What's going on right now is not sustainable, and it's not helping anyone. So hopefully we can all look to the future and not live in the past.
Definitely. Next question has to do with the Norman Forward projects that obviously in 2020, those bond initiatives, they failed on the ballot. Y'all have still been able to fund some of them with the money y'all received, both COVID-wise and some other money in the budget. And some residents have been complaining that if it was voted down, this should have gone back up for a ballot and not used other funds to fund it. What would you say there, and what is your take on that?
I would say that these, once in a generation federal funds that our community has received gave us an opportunity to fulfill long-term promises that have just been hanging out there due to some circumstances in our control and some circumstances not. And so we have done our part to invest in different quality of life initiatives that will make an impact for our community now, but for years to come. So I completely support how these dollars were spent. You mentioned Norman Forward, so I assume you're referring to the senior center. But with the ARPA funds, we've also fully built out our emergency operations and communication center, which will impact our first responders. I'm so tired of Norman, pinching pennies and just getting by, and then having like builders regret the moment it's done because we had an opportunity to do it right and we missed it. And now with these once in a generation funds and the opportunity, we are doing it right. And I think it's going to make a lasting impact for the Norman community.
Definitely. On the business front of things, there's been some place that Norman is not being very business friendly, and this has been for a while. This is just under your administration. This has been kind of something that's been said a while. I mean, Costco's missed out on. Some businesses are choosing more over us. What would you do to make Norman more business friendly and invite businesses to come into Norman and develop and just bring the kind of property value of Norman up with these new businesses coming in?
Well, in terms of Costco, that wasn't just a reputation thing, that was an exit off of I-35 thing. So I think one way that we can be more business friendly is make sure our infrastructure is in place and ready to go so we can be more job ready to take advantage of it. People say we're not business friendly, yet we're growing quickly. We grew faster than Tulsa did. So I really have a hard time believing that, especially as we are creating a development center that will streamline the permitting process, which I'm very excited to see. So just because we have high standards for development doesn't mean that we're not business friendly. I'm very excited to see the recent employers that we announced, AMI and another one, that are going to bring a lot of jobs to Norman, and not just jobs, but high quality jobs, high paying jobs. So despite that reputation that, you're right, has been around long before me, I think we are business friendly. We're excited to see it grow. Our small businesses are thriving. Look at our Main Street. Where we've got more opportunities there than ever before. Porter is being reimagined. So I get that it's a stereotype, but I don't think it's a valid one. And I'm also excited to use some of these ARPA dollars. And again, this has to be voted on by all of council, but to create maybe some sort of incubators and, again, lasting support of small businesses, not just a one-time deal. Perhaps rent space on Main Street where we can get these businesses jump started and fill vacancies on Main Street. There's just so much we can do. And so there is a reputation there, and I have no idea how to defeat it besides just handing out money. But we're growing and we're doing great. And I'm very excited for the future in terms of our local economy.
What advice would you give to yourself in 2016 when you're first getting involved in council, knowing what you know now?
Ooh, well, hindsight is always 2020, which that phrase just doesn't have the same luster as it used to after the actual 2020. I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you the first lesson that I ever learned from the dais. So people don't realize how much work goes into this. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of constituent outreach. And some issues, it reminds me of a law school question, which answer is most correct? And so I'm used to doing my research, and my very first difficult vote, I was so proud. I had done my research. I was ready. I knew what I was going to do. And I was like, everyone's going to love this decision. And the moment I cast my vote, I started getting emails from people on the other side saying, how could you, yada, yada, yada. And so I learned quickly that everything I do is going to have opponents and critics. Period. I'm pretty sure at this point, after what I've been through, I could cure cancer and someone would have a problem with it. But you have to do the best that you can, and you have to take your opportunities seriously. Again, the research, the reading, the constituent outreach, working with staff. We have the best staff in the city of Oklahoma, and our council turnover is quite high if you look at it. And so they're such a great foundation of knowledge. So I think I would tell Breea back in 2016 to do your research, talk to constituents, consult with staff, and make the best decision that you can, and know that no matter what decision you make, someone is going to be upset. But as long as you are doing the right thing for Norman and the future of your community, you're making the right choice.
Definitely. And just kind of final question, what are 3 things that, if elected, you want to get done in this next term? That you just any issues, obviously there's Norman has issues that have been persistent for a while. What do you want to get done for the city of Norman if elected for another term?
Well, the first one, stormwater utility. I was not prepared to address that my first term. It was not an agenda item that I was working on, and then COVID happened, so it worked out well that that wasn't my plan. But it's time. We are the largest city in the state of Oklahoma to not have a stormwater utility, and it's about quality of life. It's about safety. It's about protecting the environment. It's about preserving the quality of our water, and we need to get it done. So I'm excited to tackle that in my second term. I also want to make sure, and I've touched on this, that we use our federal funds to the fullest extent and get as much done possible. And with my experience and my background and my knowledge and my network right now, I think I'm best positioned to make that happen. And an area within that whole federal funding bubble that I would like to really zone in on is affordable housing. Homelessness is on the rise around the nation. But saying that doesn't make people in Norman feel better about what we're seeing. And affordable housing is also a national problem that has trickled down for cities to handle. Austin is spending a third of their massive amounts of millions of dollars trying to address the same problem. So I'm excited to work with the county and the state because we have a unique opportunity being home to the Griffin Memorial Hospital that deals with mental health to see what we can do to tackle that and not just build more affordable housing or more tiny houses, but also look at the root cause of these problems. And so again, a once in a generation opportunity to really tackle that issue head on. And I think the third one that I would focus on is continuing to invest in our infrastructure. Everything from finishing these road projects that have been hanging out there forever, replacing our pipes. I mean, we're way behind on that. Our bridges are failing. And this is the basic job of local government. So many people have tried to make this, oh, it's a national politics thing. Oh, it's a partisan thing. For me, it's not. It's about doing the basic work of local government, which is provide city services. And so while we're rebuilding our infrastructure and investing there, we also need to do it in a sustainable way. I'm very proud of the solar arrays that are being put in at the water treatment plant and the water reclamation facility that will help offset energy usage as we produce and that basic government service. And so I'd like to see us expand on that. We have committed to the Ready for 100 initiative, and there are lots of opportunities to build and also to build in a sustainable way. So working on our infrastructure, a stormwater utility, and making the most of our federal dollars, specifically focusing on affordable housing and addressing homelessness, are 3 of my top priorities for my second term.
Well, Mayor, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.